different things that I do within the industry in regards to I do interior design, event setup, costume design, evening gown design for queens, and I would have started somewhere. Like we all started somewhere. And this documentary here is just basically me owning my life, me owning Carnival. I own it. I remember going to school one day and I would have seen the sketches for Vitus Mass Troupe. Back then I went to St. John's Catholic, and they brought out their children's sections and we had it up on our bulletin board. And that was my first carnival experience. You know, I went home, I was like, Mom, you know, I want to try and play mass. And she was like, okay, no problem. And the rest is history. We got from just registering in the mass camp to me going into the mass camp, assisting to make costumes. The following year, I would have went up on stilts, and from that, I would have gone into playing pan. From pan to pageantry, which was Teen Splash. From Teen Splash to designing for mass, and then from designing for mass to designing for queens. Then now I decorate for fetes, I decorate for events, and it's just been one big roller coaster. Like it started so simple, like it was literally just a sketch that started this entire journey. So Kevon does not sew. I'm not a seamstress. So when people come and they're like, oh, you know, I have this picture, can you make this for me? No, I can't. If you have something that inspires you, I can put it together and create something inspired by. Same way I would have done in the background, where this is a Sensei Fowl costume, one of Antigua's traditional costumes, and from that I was able to pull inspiration to create this costume. So imagine costumes used to look like this 20 years ago, and in 2021 this is what costumes look like. Whereas you were able to hold this up and see what it is, you can see the movements. I was able to inspire something based on this costume, the gown. And inspiration doesn't just have to be specifically color or textures, it can be movement.
Did you come into Vitus? When did you start playing with Vitus?
So I think it would have started with, I think it was 1998. Whereas math is different now when they started the band launch. Back then it was sketches. So at that time I was going to St. John's Catholic, and they would have had these sketches on the billboard of all the children's sections.
Yeah.
And by that I was like, you know, Mommy, I think I want to try this. So for the first year, I would have played mass regularly. The next year, I would have moved on to stilts. But I realized I had some form of a passion for it because I would be in the mass camp helping out to create the costumes. And it was so amazing to see these pictures come to life in person. So from these elaborate pictures of how the stones would have been placed and everything, and to actually physically be a part of the process. As a child, to bring it to life, it was surreal. And even with now too, I find interpretational mass where I have a different appreciation for that. Whereas you can see a costume and say, hey, that's a bird. That's that specific bird based on the colors, the shapes. These are the things that kind of molded me coming forward. Also as a child, my mother was one of those who took me to every Queen show. Queen show, JCs when they had like 20 contestants.
Yes.
And the evening gown segment and the costume segment specifically was something that stood out to me, because back in those days they were 20, what were the sizes
like
of those
15
costumes?
feet.
Yes, and I know you would have been one of those designers at that point who would have put a staple into these things. What was that like?
You speaking, you know, everything that I really withdrew me to mass making in Antigua. The fact that you were so passionate about the cultural norms, the cultural characters that we had, one, and two, the joy and the passion of seeing something from paper transform to this thing. What else do you call that? And this performance on the stage, that to me was what really drew me to that. So right away you were drawn to the stilt walking.
Yes, I was. I remember that first year, there were so many stilt walkers that we had 3 stilt walking sections. So they had the junior section, which was usually start from 2 feet. And then there was an all-female stilt walking section, and then there was the guys who are on 5, 6 feet stilts. Their section was fireworks. And these are, even now when I'm designing, the consideration as to movement and portrayal, just from the designing process itself, you're thinking, okay, yes, we're now into bikini and feathered mask, but there's a lot of consideration as to how is this costume going to look on the road? Do they sway left to right? Is it, how can you get it to manipulate that feeling on the road? Because all of these things, even though it looks so simple and pretty on the road, a lot of thought goes into it. From our aspect in terms of the designing, the logistics, even the making of it.
Kevon, I see you as maybe the next generation, not maybe, you are the next generation, because that is my concern, okay? I'm all for you doing your bikini and your 2-piece and whatever, but there has to be that generation of designers who are looking to portray, doesn't have to be realistically, but at least you should be able to look at the character and see what it is portraying. And that's why I find it kind of difficult about to look at the criteria that is being used and see how it is being used to judge 2 distinct set of characters, really. Because you have one where you can just look at it and see it's portraying a parrot or whatever. But then on the other side, you have somebody with 5 different color feathers, and they tell you that they're portraying a parrot. So I kind of find it difficult, I would like to be a judge, to use the same criteria that is being used to judge the persons on that side as to the persons. And I think there is room for both.
I think there is too, definitely, because I judged Children Carnival 2 years in a row, and one of the issues I had was the name. They would come with, oh, this is a bee, and I'm looking for this bee. Other than the fact that it's yellow and black, I think even though in mature masks we are gravitating to the bikini mask and that kind of thing, I still think that the Children Carnival needs that creative element. And when you, even if we start from there and it matures into an adult mask or something, we can't lose it from the children aspect of it. And being a judge and having to sit down and watch some mask troops that I could have went to a Chinese store and bought, you buy a wing and you buy the little tutu for the girls, I don't find that's something I could sit down and judge honestly. Because as designers, we sit down and we put concepts together and we put the time into it, and then to come to a...
And it's not just concepts. When I used to design for mass groups, there were months before where I started doing research.
That's so.
You do research, you go to the library, look in books, you look online, you do all sorts of research. So it's a process, and then the ideas, come to your mind. That year when, I think you mentioned it, when Vitus did, there was a celebration. And one of the sections was fireworks, another one was champagne and things like that. So you have to carry the theme throughout the mass in the sections. So,
and you still have to make sure everything coincides in terms of color and design.
Yes, that too.
With the different sections.
That too.
2003 and 4, I would have started my first panoramas with Gemini Steel Orchestra and then transitioned over to Hell's Gate. We started playing pan at a very important time also, because when I look back, I would have been one of the first members in the Gemini Steel Steel Orchestra, and then when I transferred over to Hell's Gate, I was one of the founding members of USS Manning Pan Academy also. And I feel like, as young people, we were the youths that stepped in and brought school and younger people, as you said before, into the art form.
Yeah, that was a very influential time.
I never was able to play with like 2 bands. Have you?
I've done that actually in 2010. I played with Hell's Gate and Geminites. That year.
Two bands, okay.
But I actually didn't even go to the rehearsal for Geminites until the week of Panama.
Yeah, I know y'all can deal with it. Not me.
I think it was just mornings.
I need to go from the beginning and learn the parts and then practice and practice and practice and make it to Panorama. Because we would have started playing with bands. Now you arrange for bands.
I arranged for Panache Steel Audition.
Panache. Like write these things from scratch and stuff, or how does this arrange?
Well,
it's not like decorating, because like for decorating I just say, okay, well, I want this. But then when you have to pick note for note, harmonize per instrument.
Each voice. I get it in my head.
Okay.
That's pretty much. I can't really sing.
So we're throwing it back to 2007. That would have been my second to last year in Panorama. The baddest minor I ever hear in my life. Like there were split parts all over the minor. When we learned it, it didn't make no kind of sense. Because you're learning your parts. But when you put it together, it was genius. Let's relive that. Let's relive that. Like these are the memories of Carnival, and now we have a whole different generation of Carnival and arts and stuff. Where do you see us going?
Well, the first thing I think that we need to do is let people be aware of the history of Carnival.
Definitely.
Because once you're aware of the past, it can help to move forward.
I'm literally going back looking for footage and stuff of Carnival back in the day to compare pieces back then to now. And they don't exist. Like there are no documentaries before showing, this is Antigua's Carnival story, this is where we came from. Other than maybe the Little Bit of Paradise, that book that we all had.
There's not a lot of documentation.
Yeah.
So we need to do more.
We need to definitely. In terms of our culture and where we've come from, we need to analyze that, document it, and decide how we're going to take it to move forward.
Yes.
And it's up to us. We are the Von Walters of the back in the day.
It's crazy that you say that, I would have never thought.
It is now us. We have to own this. Years ago we went to the Routine Splash.
That was 2007. It was the 50th anniversary Carnival. Yes, so 2007.
Yeah.
It was the 50th anniversary.
It was,
yeah. That was a special year for many reasons. I remember where Teen Splash is concerned, meeting, I would have known you before we played fun at the NYPO at Hell's Gate, but meeting all of the other participants, it's different what happens backstage, what happens during the rehearsals. It's different to what you see on the night of the show.
That's so true. I remember the year before that we would have done, that would have been my first Carafesta. I was the representative for the Clear Hall Secondary School, my alma mater. That experience was an experience of a lifetime. So everybody, well, not everybody, the younger ones wouldn't know, but I fell on stage. Fun fact, that year was the first year I've ever been to Teen Splash, and the last year. It really was not a thing to me. It's not something that I've been to before. I could not give general knowledge as to how it would have went, because I would have seen it on TV, but other than that, I've never physically been to a Teen Splash. So yeah, you roll up in this joint and be like, hey, you're going for this show. No, that's not how it went. So the year before, I would have represented Antigua at Caribbean Festival of Arts in Trinidad, which is Carafesta. And a group of us who were there decided that, hey, we want to go in for Teen Splash. And out of, I think it was maybe 4 or 5 of us, we went in for the show the following year. Me personally, I forgot about it. I really wasn't interested. But there was another contestant who was interested from my school who submitted my name. So by default, I was now in the show. So yeah, we go into this show. Moments before I go on stage for my research on stilts, I am walking around the stage, it just rained and everything. They would have mopped off the stage, cleaned it, made sure it was dry. Yeah, until I'm there running across the stage. Yes, imagine.
Imagine a spectacle of thousands of revelers as they make their way into National Park. Amid the intoxicating rhythm of calypso and steel pan music.
The crowd's reaction was a mixture of and laughs. And at that point, I had to make a decision. Hey, you're gonna continue or you're gonna stop. Because you can either be porting and people laugh at you for the rest of your life, or you can act the shit out of this and make it worth it. And I stayed on that floor and I continued my entire performance from the floor. The next day, I was a front page article. If at first you don't succeed, you try and try again. The next year, I was the billboard for the website. I had my own billboard on the road and stuff like that, which is something that is not normally given to an on-place contestant. Yes, I didn't win. Yes, I didn't win any segments. But then at the same time, that experience that you would think would have deterred me or, broken me down in some kind of way was something that opened a whole big spectrum to me as a person in terms of confidence and being able to think on your feet. You need to get this done. What are you gonna do? So let's go to our extreme experience. That would have happened by accident. I used to work at the Pink Mongoose, and across the road was the mass camp for extreme. And one day I was walking home from work and I just happened to go in because, I'd done tried the traditional mass, I've been in Pan, I've done Teen Splash, and Carnival is me. So now walking into this space and they're selling costumes, I'm seeing what the costumes for this year was going to look like. That just basically grew a bond with us. So now I was a part of the Extreme family. I would have played with them for at least 2 to 3 years, to which, with my experience in mass and stuff, I would have helped out in the mass camp and then ended up designing for their section leaders in the mass camp also. What would have moved me from there in terms of transition was, even though I came into that space and I was comfortable with this family, they were not people that I grew up around. They weren't people that I went to fets with. They weren't people that I knew from before. So in terms of playing mass with my friends, that is an experience I would have never had. So I remember one year, one of my friends was just like, hey, I know you're comfortable playing mass with us, but why don't go over and try mass with your friends? That experience, it's a different experience. Even though yes, you know us, yes, we cool. It's a whole entire different experience. So I tried it, and the rest is history. So now we transition to playing mass with friends. Playing mass with your day ones. It touched different. I'm not gonna lie, it touched different. And it gives, moving from one band to another, you realize how territorial bands are, the people who are inside the band are. Not necessarily the band leaders, but everybody. If I'm with this band, this is it. Nobody can tell me that this band not good. They could have just served you water on the road. Nobody can touch the experience. And that is how it's been throughout my carnival life. I would have transitioned from Extreme and moved on to Mist. Several years later, I would have designed for Mist, and it's different. I can tell you stories from it, the sleepless nights, it's all worth it. That's why I'm owning it. this documentary is all about that. Like, this didn't just happen overnight. This is a lifetime of not even just putting work together. It's experiences, it's meeting the designers, it's my mother dragging me to JC's years as a child. Like, all these things would have created who I am now. So the road experience, I remember after, like the first time I transitioned over to Mist, we would have played Mass together. I think you were with us.
Yeah.
It was a different experience for me because playing Mass with Extreme, it was, yes, I would have made friends going to the Mass camp, but they weren't people that I grew up with, had fun with before. So to now come over to Mist and have that experience with my actual friends, it was crazy.
Was that the year that you did the pheasant feathers on the neon costume for me?
That's the first piece I actually did for Mass. Actually, no.
No, the first piece would have been Pulse from, I think it was either season 6 or season 7 of Mist. It was the all-white costume with the colored feathers, and the back piece was just too small for me. And you were like, no problem. And you made my back piece, you augmented my back piece to be a bit bigger, and everybody fell in love with it.
I think he did my back piece that year too.
Yes,
with
the back piece, that's you.
Yes, I remember.
Listen, every year my back pieces get stolen.
Lisa puts them on the truck and thinks, you know, I'm going to go back on the truck.
I put them on the truck after 6, you know, when the sun go down.
The same thing happens to me. And I'm like, they're going to take them to the warehouse, and then...
No, I look back for my things by the time we're going back off Old Town Road, and somebody done gone with it.
You don't know how expensive feathers are.
By the time we reach Popeset Street, I try and put it on the truck because the roads get so small. And I don't want my back piece to mash up.
So narrow. There's only one year that I was able to do Popeset Street with a back piece on, and that was the year of the blue costume.
Yes, the teal.
It was this blue and teal costume. I was
French.
6 foot tall. Yes, Bourbon.
I did my.
Was it Bourbon? No, it was not Bourbon. It was the one that had lace on it. Like
yes,
had
the lace.
Oh, that was after Bourbon.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was after Bourbon. Bourbon was the blue and purple.
Yeah, but he did my back piece for Bourbon.
Right, the one-sided, back piece. I modeled that one, the original for that.
I didn't like that. So I didn't like Kevon.
Yes. That's literally what it was. I didn't like the back piece for the light blue one. It was a very light blue seafoamy green, kind of the color of your shirt.
Yeah, it was actually the color.
I didn't like so much of the lace, or I liked the concept. I liked one of the colors, so then I got Kevon to do a back piece. I don't tell Kevon what to do with my back pieces. So I show up on the day at JSC, because you know I do makeup, so I'm always late, and he straps this back piece to my back. I'm a foot taller than I actually am in real life now, so I'm 6 foot tall with these butterfly wings, and it was light as air because this genius made the back piece with paper mache. And I was able to keep it on for Popeset Street because it literally flapped back. So people would pass me and hit into my wing, and my wig would just do this.
Oh, pardon me.
Exactly. It was very, very much bougie. It was quite the event, and everybody was just like tall. I remember walking up by Shawls.
Yes, Newgate Street.
Just passing people, just people like, what just happened? My wing just flopping back and forth.
I think Carnival, in terms of designing costumes and stuff, the logistics don't really end at the design.
Can't.
You have to think about the masquerader, the movements, what a masquerader goes through on the road. Because there are these costumes that they stick out like this, and then as you're jamming down the road, everybody that pass you, you're getting slapped in the face.
The ones that have the pointy pieces sticking out. I'm like, who are we? What road are we supposed to go on?
I am big. Give me way. When big truck passes, people move.
That's true.
I feel like
you always get to that point where you can't be considerate anymore. Because you've walked sideways and you try to be like, you try to be cordial and it didn't work.
You know, one of my fondest memories also, like it hit me last year Monday. Because last year would have been the first year without Carnival. Every time we turn a corner, with the big truck has to reverse and maneuver. And last year Monday, ironically, I was driving past Extreme Gym and there was a truck in front of me and it could not make the corner. And they had to go through that same reversing process. I'm like, this would have been us on the road.
Last year is the first time I really felt what Bungie said when he sang Carnival Tabanka. Like, honestly. Last year was the first time I was like,
it gave us a different appreciation because not having it, like last year my mother came to me and she's like, how are you? Because normally for the 3 days.
You're gone.
I'm gone. I'm not
Missing.
sleeping.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
there
It's
working on
hard. It
costumes
was
straight
hard.
down.
It was really
so to
hard.
actually sit down and just not have anything to
Anything.
do.
It was hard. I didn't put on a costume all year last year. Yesterday was the first time I think I would have put a costume on in 2-3 years. And I'm not okay.
She couldn't make it.
I'm not
she couldn't make
okay,
it.
boss. I'm not. I need a training camp, a boot camp, or something before Carnival come back because, no. How did we do it though? How did we do that route?
That road?
How did we do that route?
Especially with the bathing suits, the strappy bathing suits, like, and the wire bras, like.
We were talking about that yesterday.
I remember one year Kevon used to straps me into my costumes, right? And he's always like tying it way too tight. And I'm like, Kevon, that's too tight. And he's just like, would you prefer it to be too tight? Or would you prefer your bubble to be outside?
Exactly.
I go home with like, but I love it. I go home with like slices, like micro slices from sequins in my skin and like
it's all about
the
the
sunburn.
experience.
Like I wear my costume for 4 weeks
All the
after
lines.
mass, all the lights.
My nail tech told me, we're keeping our toes this year.
No big toes! No big toenails! You can't come home with big toenails. And I think because you enjoy the road so much and you play mass with so many of us, you play mass with women and men, you completely understand
the experience.
And so you design from that place. And I think that's my favorite thing about you as a designer across the board, is how you allow your personal experience to influence your designs.
That's why I'm owning it. You definitely have to own what you do, because it didn't just happen.
Yeah.
It would have been years upon years of mass, traditional, teen splash. All these things would have came in and created me. Yeah.
For sure. Because like even when he was doing my costumes, it was like, Kevon, I want something elaborate. He's like, okay, but what you want? I don't know.
I never know.
I
never know. I just show up.
I'll show something like, I kind of like this now, but I like this too. And he's like, okay, all right. And then
I should say I want to be big.
Yeah.
Then on
big,
the day
wide,
off,
tall.
get your shit.
And you're blown away.
Like you know not to even ask. Well, me personally, I don't even ask for it before.
I don't question.
Maybe after I think 1 year I got it after breakfast. I was like, wow. Wow.
Nah, I show up after I do makeup, pull up at Kevon's house like, you have my costume.
You know, that reminds me of, there was a year where there was just a ton of people at my house. I didn't know who they were. I'm there, I'm ready, I've done everybody's costume, I'm getting ready to leave the house, and then they're just these random people. Oh, I need this fixed up. Oh, I'm done.
I'm finished.
I'm done. I'm ready for the road. I'm done.
Because when it's road time, it's road time. When it's road time with Kevon, it's road time with Kevon.
The last year I played with Miss. That was the white and blue costume. I call him, you ready for me? He's like, almost.
You
like,
don't
alright, meet
you
me
don't
on the
even know
road.
they cussing you. Like, we be working on the costume and everything. I'm like, oh, we have to add this to Lisa's costume. They're like, why do we have to keep on going back to Lisa's costume?
He very much met, I just went on the road and he very much met me on the road with my
back piece. That's what usually happens. I get strapped up in town. Like, a year I walked in and it was this beautiful braid and I was like, Tan, man, me love this. Me want a whole costume out of this. He snatched it from me and says, that's for Lisa.
So one of my other mass experience would have been working with A&K, which would be me, Anya, and Nikisha. We started a alteration company where we would have done pieces for Monday wear and actual back pieces, bras, separate pieces for mass itself. I think this would have been before I started designing for Mist and Insane. So that would have been in the initial stages of getting things done. By that, I would have done some work with Miss Nevis for JC's. We're friends up to now. So I find that these experiences, even though it's like a job, it creates these bonds with your clients and helps you to kind of not just create for a person, but create for their ideas.